Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Joel Elston and Alex King. Today is Thursday, July the 4th, 2019. Happy birthday to the U.S. It is 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, 10 p.m. in Sydney, 9 p.m. in Tokyo, and various times in other places around the world. But thank you very much for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of. And, like I said at the top there, I want to wish a happy birthday to the U.S. for those who aren't aware. July 4th is always our celebration of Independence Day here in the United States. And it creates it's creating an interesting dynamic this year that I figured would get our conversation off to a flying start because our president has decided he wants a parade with tanks in it. And America, by and large, by a large majority, is saying no tanks. I'm not interested. And it occurred to me, this is a great opportunity to talk about preferences. We're constantly faced with, a variety of things. Do we prefer this? Do we not prefer this? And so forth. And this is a case where the leader of the country wants to go one way and everybody else wants to go another way. And the nice thing is those of us who don't prefer to go that way can just go back to the idea of, fireworks and picnics with families and all kinds of stuff like that we've always done on the 4th of July. And yet there are going to be some people who are going to say, oh, well, we got to get all upset about what the president wants to do. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think? Should we get all excited and upset about what the president wants to do?
I don't think it matters. He's going to do what he wants to do anyway, whether we like it or not. So who cares?
Because preference is it. Preference is everything.
And I prefer not to give a damn.
Well, that's just it. So often we give a damn about stuff that really doesn't make a lot of difference. And it creates a lot of problems, actually.
Right.
Like Joel, you and I talked about for years about how if you keep focusing on what you don't want, you get more of what you don't want.
Completely. And when it comes to this or any of the political arena or perspectives, and we've proven it in elections, it's about 45% feel one way, 45% feel another way, and then the other side just doesn't care. So the way I look at it, at least again, through everything that's taking place has a perspective, and we give power through our perspective to things. One of several of my Facebook friends are I've always lived in the South. I'm in Richmond, Virginia now, and started in Florida and lived in Charlotte, now in Richmond. So a lot of my friends, probably 75% of my friends, are Southern. Even though I've met a lot of people around the country. So there's a perspective that tends to be, while you're saying the great majority of people were against the tanks, I would say the great majority of my friends are like thinking this is the most awesome thing on the planet.
Oh, really?
Because
I'm serious. Yeah. I'm a little bit surprised because the bit that I've been picking up from various sources is that there was a lot of resistance to it. So I'm interested to hear that.
Yeah, a lot of my friends are and people that when I say friends, you get a lot of opinions on Facebook. So just, my hometown, is Plant City, Florida, and we grew up where super conservative, super, and the concept that you're either on one side or another. They're the people that really believe that, God installed Donald Trump as president, so everything he does is absolutely 100% completely. And from my perspective, I'm not in agreement with all that stuff. However, what the great advantage that I've learned in my life is my perspective is my perspective. How I look at things now, this event tonight has as much power as I'm willing to give to it. If it really frustrates me, I'm giving it power. One of the posts that I've seen recently on Facebook was a gentleman that he is, and I don't even know the story, but it's something about this Betsy Ross flag and Colin Kaepernick and this whole thing. And I have a light version of that. And again, I don't watch the news on purpose, so I have this idea of sort of where it goes. And I tried to point out to him that this day and age, we were having a conversation about something else. When you post about what you don't want, when you're a ultra conservative middle-aged male in the South, and you post that, you don't realize you're doing exactly what the other side wants you to do, and vice versa. When we protest strongly, or some people protest strongly against Donald Trump's view of the United States, you literally are feeding the narrative of the other side of what they're producing. So both sides are reinforcing with your reaction. When I'm working with families, I use this line this week. The difference between the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. Love and hate are the same emotion. It's just how it's directed. Whereas as indifference is truly when you give indifference to something, you rob it of its power. So when we have a reaction to, and we're using this as an example, there's multiple things. You look at this. I am 90 miles, south of Washington, D.C. And I'm a million miles away mentally. It doesn't have any bearing. My world today has no effect of what takes place on a parade or how people tend to perceive the parade. When you go, one of my favorite lines that Mother Teresa said years ago, during the Vietnam War, when and she was very much in favor of peace, they asked her why she didn't attend the anti-war rallies, and her response is, when you have a peace rally, I'll go. And she did when they had a peace rally. But but anti-war is you're giving attention to the war versus let's give attention to peace. And so the resistance we put, and we talk about the resistance of the law of attraction, the frustrations that both sides feel are, I have a very dear friend. She's lesbian, and her partner and her are great. She is so freaked out by all the environment. I said, but your world hasn't changed, but your perspective of the world has changed. She thought all things were great, and all of a sudden Trump came along, my world changed, everything fell apart. I go, nothing in your life changed but your perspective.
Right.
Your friends didn't change, your world didn't change. Regardless of what you're hearing, your rights haven't changed. There's nothing that's changed here. And again, in her environment, but yet there's this feeling that she's under attack because she's giving that narrative power. One of the beauties of getting old, number one has been not caring what other people think, in some ways, and also realizing that the pendulum will swing back the other way. This is whether President Trump is reelected or he's not reelected. This is all going to be a whole different, our focus is going to be a lot different in 2 years or 5 years or whatever that's going to be. Right now, my perspective of today is what's in my power. And that's your choice. That's where your superpower exists. When you allow others to dictate how you feel by adamantly, disagreeing with them or going, I don't give President Trump or Nancy Pelosi or anyone else any of my emotional power. I don't do that. That's what they're after. They want to create fear. It sells. Fear that Donald Trump is going to destroy the country, or fear that the liberals are going to take all our money and all the gays are going to rape our children. Those are narratives. Those are true narratives that they're put out there.
That's why I'm laughing, because people are ridiculous.
Yeah. And so, it's just where it goes. We always have done a really good job. I think the greatest growth in our country, our strength is our differences. I would not want either side, there's answers out there that, if either side just totally got control, things would fall apart. It's the balance of both sides that keep us sort of afloat. Is there things that can be better? Of course, we're always evolving, but it doesn't, it only has the power we give to it. So sort of the concept of no matter what you think about this parade or what, there is a vision for many people in America that we are this strong military might and we must always be more powerful. We must always, force our views and wills. There's other people that say we don't need any of that stuff. And at the end of the day, my day today consists of me, taking care of my family, doing what I need to do. My life isn't affected by either of those sides, as long as I don't give them power. So that's sort of supporting what you're saying. If you look at the resistance in the law of attraction, and the resistance is what you put your energy toward. What you don't want desperately is what you attract more of.
Mm-hmm. That's just it right there. And you're right. That is exactly the point that I wanted to make. This is kind of this whole parade thing is a really minor thing going on by comparison to what goes on in the everyday lives of people. And it's not going to affect anybody. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to make any big difference unless and until people start giving it energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point. If you don't like tanks and parades, Independence Day parades, don't pay any attention to tanks and Independence Day parades.
Right.
Take your attention away from that entirely. Go to see the local fireworks. Don't worry about what's going on over in D.C. It doesn't matter. It only matters if you give it attention. And yet so often we give it attention. We give, and you mentioned both sides, Joel. Both sides give attention to all kinds of stuff that they don't like.
Yes. Yes.
That's the amazing part. They give so much attention to stuff that they don't like, and then they get really, really upset about it, which of course makes it more likely that it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It blows my mind. It's blown my mind ever since I became interested in politics so many years ago. And it's actually, Joel, believe it or not, and Alex too, it's actually the reason why I am now becoming less and less interested in politics.
I was never interested in politics, and I find life is a lot easier when you just mind your own business and stay in your own lane.
Right?
So.
Well, and that, again, just and the law of attraction is directly related. Walt and I talked about this all through the election with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Whether and this is not me supporting any side, but Donald Trump is an excellent practitioner of the law of attraction.
He's very skilled.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. He's wonderful at it, and he understands it. People that underestimate him, they don't quite get it. He knows exactly what he's doing. He says people say he's lying, and from one perspective he is, but he will state what he wants it to be, and then all of his followers then repeat that over and over, so it becomes true to them.
Exactly.
So that's their reality. And so does the other side. So if the sky is falling, and unless, the market will crash if Donald Trump loses I promise it will for a little while, because that's what he's told everyone, and people buy into that. And the truth is, and the truth is, the other side, if you just give it that power, when the surprise election happened, and nobody expected Donald Trump to win, and so when he did win, the market the first day went down like 600 points.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's like, oh no, it was just a perception. Nothing changed in the economy or the environment.
Right.
Well, the market yesterday hit the all-time historical high of all time yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it has never been higher than it's been yesterday, and it's been on an incredible run because the perception of things right now are really good. Now, of course, Donald Trump's going to take credit for that, and then President Obama's people are going to take credit for that, and everybody's going to take credit for it. But at the end of the day, it's what we simply believe.
Right.
And so understand that applies individually in our life without it. But it's so easy to see how the sides can then get in this, and you dictate your own reality. And when you allow other people to program you, it doesn't bode well, because you're not really where you look at life is from your perspective. A person born in any inner city Baltimore does not have the same perspective that somebody who is born in in the upper west side of New York City. It's just an incredibly different environment they were brought up in. So you cannot expect a perspective to be similar. That's just a fact. I work with people of all different walks of life. One of the segments, I work with a lot of professional athletes, and many of them come from very humble beginnings, and all of a sudden they've been thrust into having a lot of money. And it's very interesting for their perspective of how to do it. That's why you hear horror stories of these young men and women who make a lot of money, and then they're broke in 3 or 4 years because they're still they view that wealth as it's still viewed through the eyes of lack. And so it's almost like they're trying to get rid of the money. They're not, of course, but that's what it would appear. So the perspective is the solution to all of our problems, is when you realize there's a chain of events today that will take place that I have complete power over. Those events include what I do, what I choose, how I choose to think, all that stuff. But the vast majority of things that are going to happen around the world today have nothing to do with me, or they're not in my power. So they only have the energy that I give them. That's it, period.
And I'd even go a step further and say, really, everything that's in your life, you have power over. If it's not in your life, you're not going to have power over it. But it's not because you're powerless. It's not part of your life.
Right.
When I do attempt to give something that's not in my power the power, I actually affect my world, I know people that are just very upset about this parade, like you're talking about. I can't believe this is happening.
Oh, yeah.
I go, if you're going to allow your day to be upset by that, you're allowing, you have pressure. The parade is not going to affect anyone. It's not going to, you don't have to go to Washington, D.C. You don't have to watch the news coverage. You don't have to watch any of it.
Right.
If you didn't know it was happening, the world will go on.
I didn't know it was happening, and it didn't faze me either way.
Right. Well, this morning is sort of funny because I texted Walt last night making sure we were doing the show today, and he said, yes. Right. So I've had it on my calendar the whole time. Well, this morning I get up, and it feels like a Saturday to me. And so my normal Saturday has me getting up, having breakfast, and then going to the gym first, and then going to seeing clients. So I was sitting in my car about to crank it up when the reminder came on that I had the show this morning. I had forgotten that we were doing the show not because I didn't know it was a show, but it was just Saturday morning on some level. I was living a reality based on and I laughed and I came back in and we're here. But that idea is funny because I wasn't giving it that thought. I just was sort of on cruise control the other way.
Right.
So I could have, if I didn't have the reminder, I would have been to the gym, worked out. I've had like 3 or 4 texts from Walt, like, where the hell are you? And I'd have been like, totally forgot about it. And even though last night I talked about it, again, where you pay your attention, that's the solution. So when I hear people saying, well, so-and-so made me mad or so-and-so upset me. And so I said, no, your perception of that is what did that. It's fascinating to watch. Once you're on the other side of it, it's no one has power unless you allow it.
And the point that you made earlier about what Mother Teresa said about peace and anti-war rallies and so forth applies here as well. If you don't like tanks and parades, don't focus on tanks and parades. Don't get upset about tanks and parades. Don't even think about tanks and parades. Think instead about the kind of parade you want. Imagine that kind and go to them. It's not like we lack parades in this country. There are plenty of them.
We sure don't.
I mean, they're everywhere. You can hardly avoid them. So go to a kind of parade that you like and focus your attention there. And people like to have power over this kind of thing. I think that's why people get so interested in what's going on politically. They feel a lack of power, so they figure, oh, well, if we can just gang up together and we can get our will asserted, the will of the people, then we will have power. Well, you really want to influence things in the world? Focus on what it is that you really want, and you will influence things in ways that you can't even imagine right now. It will happen in ways that will just blow your mind. You'll say, how did that happen? Very often you won't even be able to see the evidence of how it happened.
Right.
But somehow something will change, some transition will happen, and looking back you'll be able to say, well, yeah, there were a bunch of us who were really focusing on what we preferred instead, but that's about the most evidence you'll have in most cases. And yet it works. It works consistently. So,
i.e. the Boston Straight Parade.
See,
there's another one I didn't know about.
How did you get here?
That's the perfect, like, I have friends, my friends who are gay.
Yeah.
They're horrified. They are horrified at the New York City Gay Pride Parade.
What?
They're horrified at it. They said, look, I don't wear pink Speedos and dance around wearing masks. That's a stereotype. They think it's the stereotype is reinforcing. They're horrified by that. Does that make sense? I mean, to them, they're like, this is the exact opposite of what we need to be doing.
I was going to say, I see their point. However, I feel like it's a party. It's a celebration. It's a masquerade party in the end of the day. So I don't feel... And
that, you're right.
Yeah.
Because that's your perspective. You gotta,
right.
This is the point. These are people who have fought very hard to have their rights. Some of these people they've adopted children and they're horrified that their fight is boiling down to two guys in pink Speedos that are rubbing up against each other in the middle of New York, of Times Square. Well, not because they care about what they're doing. It's just the message that is reinforcing of the other side. And so everybody, and there's other people who have the literal just your response, the opposite side of that. This is a celebration. It doesn't matter which side you're viewing it. It's just the point that everybody views the world from the lens they have lived. So you can't, somebody who has lost 3 children to wars around the world has a lens of the military that's different than mine. I know that when people get really freaked out that somebody will kneel at the national anthem, well, I know people that have lost children that take it personally that you do that. And the other side will say, we're not intending that. They go, but that's how I'm taking it. And that's our problem.
Yeah, true.
Well, and it's actually only our problem because we decide to make it a problem. I mean, it doesn't have to be a problem.
That's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah.
I think me and Walt went through this yesterday. I think we were talking about tattoos, and we had an open and honest discussion about what we prefer and what we don't prefer about it. And then we decided at the end of the conversation, this is how the world needs to be. You need to step in, talk about your side, talk about the other side, and then come to an agreement, even if you agree to disagree. But I feel like if everybody just I can't say everybody. If majority of people aired their views and just took in the other person's view for a second, things would go a lot smoother.
It can be a way of letting go. I mean, certainly if that's what you're doing, because we were doing that. I don't think either one of us were really hanging on, to be perfectly honest. No. But if you go into a conversation with the idea that you're going to have the conversation so you can let go of whatever angst you got associated with it, then I'd say it's powerful.
As opposed to going in there saying, I'm going to prove my point and I'm going to convince you of it.
I'm going to change your mind.
Yeah, that's the totally different opposite effect you want to have.
Yeah, and I guarantee you won't change the other person's mind. All you're going to do is get both of you pissed off, and you're going to help produce the opposite of what you have in mind.
Exactly.
So good luck with that.
Open minds, open souls.
And that's it. That's why this topic is sort of the solution to law of attraction and happiness overall, is when you realize you can only view the world through the lens that you've lived or developed through your life. And that lens may change. When you everybody that's sitting across from you, it's not that they're wrong, it's they're seeing it differently.
Yes.
And that's the part that both sides can't get. Well, they're stupid, they're ignorant because they believe that. I have a lot of my well-educated friends that tend to be on the liberal side that, well, they're just stupid and from the South and uneducated. That's their statement. And the truth is they're not stupid people. These are people that really have lived a life where they were told this from a young age. This is their reality. It was their reality, just like the other side. When you don't, if New York City, it's not unusual for New York City people to understand because they grew up with gun control. There's no guns in New York, or not many guns in New York legally. And
I was going to say legally.
So they grew up with it. Yeah. They grew up with that being sort of where it's at. So it's not unusual.
Right.
There's no greater to somebody in Birmingham, Alabama. There's no greater violation of their human rights in their mind than being told they can't have a firearm.
Yeah.
And again, all that, it's not about one side. it's about perspective. So I always, number one, I try to view the world through what lens the person is talking through that I may agree, but I never will disagree. I will say, I may see it differently, but I certainly respect your view. I just don't get into that. It doesn't, there's no, I don't know anybody that's ever said, "Oh my God, thank you, Joel. You changed my perspective instantly by your witty argument there." I've never heard that, and nor would I expect it, nor do I have any desire to do it. You got to get there. I have developed my views have changed drastically over the years through my experiences and meeting with people, and I just think that's such a important thing. It is direct law of attraction stuff. It's definitely law of attraction stuff.
Absolutely. And that's why it all really comes down to, what do you prefer?
Yeah.
We spend so much time focusing on what we don't prefer. We get upset about it. We get more of it. And we say, "See, I told you so," not realizing that we set ourselves up. And all we have to do is make that one shift to say, "You know what? I'm not going to get all worked up about all this stuff I don't prefer. I'm just not going to get bothered by it. I'm just going to become indifferent to it and spend the rest of my time focusing on what I prefer, what I like, what I want in my life." Because that's what I want to attract in the first place anyway. So that's where I'm going to put my focus. That change alone, when people can learn to make that change alone, that changes the world. You want to change the world? Start with yourself.
Right. It's funny that we're talking about this today, because I had a conversation with my friend last night, and we had a difference in opinion. And, okay, I got to tell the story in order for you guys to get it. Okay. So, he tells me that he's talking to this girl, right? So, she decides, to move, and she's having like sort of a moving party or whatever. But so her best friend, who's a guy, was coming over to, hang out and drink and whatever. And he felt a certain kind of way about it. But instead, the way he worded it, I said, I would have preferred if he worded it different, because I feel like he would have had a different effect. He said, "You and your friend seem kind of close. I'm going to start wearing condoms." I was like, whoa, dude.
Okay.
You could have gone about it a different way. And we argued that whole fact. He was like, "No, I feel like that got my point across." I said, "I feel like you embarrassed and hurt this girl by saying that." And he's like, "Listen, I can't listen to what you say sometimes, because you view the world based on how you view the world. You see the world through Alex-colored glasses, and you think, well, I would never do that, so nobody else would ever do it either." I said, "That is so not true." I was like, "No, I know people do stuff I wouldn't do," and I was like, and I'm totally understanding of that, but dude, no. Like, he's like, no, he was so convinced that with inhibitions lowered, things will happen that are going to upset him. And I said, well, if you think that way, that's what's going to happen. But if you had approached it differently, it would have had a better turnout. I'm just saying, you may never see her again. That was my point.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good example of how, when we focus on what we don't want, we are setting ourselves up to get more of what we don't want. And there are millions of them that literally happen every single day. So I'm going to go to the life coach and say, "So Joel, when you're trying to help somebody who wants to unlearn that habit, where do you start?" We are so ingrained with the idea of focusing on what we don't want and getting really, really upset about it. How the hell do we change?
Well, I often have a couple of visuals that I use, and I start, at the very basic thing. I tell someone, I have several intentionally well-placed little red dots or squares around my office, sort of hidden, but not hidden, but they're not. And so one of the first things I meet with everyone, I said, "Okay, I need you to really focus on what I'm saying. I'm going to ask you not to do something. I want with your best energy.
Do not look at the red dot.
Please do not find the color red in this room." Well, the moment I say that, and if wherever you're at, I'm sure you just found color red, no matter where it is, and you have now found it, because you didn't hear don't. You heard don't, but your subconscious responded to red.
Right.
So I start by saying that. So you didn't want to feel that. You didn't want to hear that. but could I ask you not to? But at the same time, you automatically did. So when you realize your subconscious is reacting in a different way. So when you get into those things, everything's a perspective. If I am standing, up close to, if I'm in the middle of a forest, I can't see anything but the trees I'm in the middle of. If I'm in an airplane looking down, it's a much different looking thing. But it again, where you're viewing it and the lens that we have creates all this. So helping people understand the lens, I will position people. I have chairs, I have several, again, strategically placed chairs, around, and I'll ask them to go sit in the other chair and then say, okay, what is in this folder that's sitting on the table? Well, I can't see the folder from here. I said, oh, okay. So then I move them to another chair that's sort of elevated. I said, what's in this folder? And they'll tell, oh, well, I can see there's some papers and it looks like it's a book or whatever. Yep. You were able to see it from that perspective. And I do a lot of stuff of helping people see you can only see things from your reality is your perspective. If I were to show up in, I don't know, I'm throwing random numbers out here. So like, 200 BC, in the middle of ancient Greece. Was Greece around in 200 BC? Well,
oh, yeah.
I mean, probably.
It goes back further than that, sure.
And if I showed up with a submachine gun and 2 grenades, they would think I was a god.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had the power to fire. Their description would be this man's arms are shiny and he this loud noise and people die. All he has to do is point at them and they die. Their perspective would be, I'm a superhuman. The truth is I wouldn't be. It's just I have technology they wouldn't understand. Their perspective would be viewed differently.
Right.
So and that's my point is all of this is about it. This is the answer to life that most people can't quite grasp. Most of the pain, most of what we hold on to is, again, through perspective, and fear and anxiety is often perspective based. And there's so much of what we dread is what we unintentionally bring to our life. One of my, Dr. Weil, are you familiar with Dr. Weil's stuff?
Only from what you've told us about it. You've mentioned it before, but I've never looked at his stuff up close.
Yeah. He does. He's just an amazing guy. He does so much stuff with very much what we believe, law of attraction based, and he has these breathing techniques that he helps you. It's called breath work and different breath. And if you've ever studied breath work, it's about forcing yourself to breathe in certain patterns to elicit a physical response. And he will have people that you could be in really tough situations, but when you force your body to breathe a certain way, it will respond to the way you're breathing. Now nothing changes, but your breathing then physically is creating something to happen in your body. Then that, again, you're looking at it differently. So it's just, you can sometimes create things by changing the environment, forcing certain things to change, but you can't keep looking at things the same way and expecting to see it any differently.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
The example you gave of the color, looking at, you said don't look at red and you see red everywhere, is a great example of how we essentially allow the environment around us to influence what we're focusing on. Right. And as you were saying that, it occurred to me, and in fact, this is exactly what I did. I did notice the red. Right here on the screen, where I monitor what goes on with the meeting, where we're doing the podcast, I have a number of items that are red, and they instantly came to my attention. And then as soon as I realized that they'd come to my attention, I said, well, I'm not really interested in red. And suddenly all the red went away.
Right.
And that's the other side of it. I mean, the point you're making, which is a wonderful point, is you can always change your perspective. You can go to a different position in the room to see how, to see that folder from a different perspective and get a different experience out of it. You can also do it from the same perspective you're in right now, just by changing what you're going to focus on. Perspective works both ways.
Right. And that's exactly the point. This is the beauty of what we're trying to to do with the law of attraction. The answer to all of life lies within us. It's within us. It's your perspective. It's the bottom line. So when you place yourself at, how am I choosing to look at today? What does today bring to me? If I'm going to approach today with the same worries and fears and anxieties and defeats and look at all that happened, yeah, it's going to happen that way. Or I have the ability to say, look, it is today. Today's an independent day. It's going to be a great day, or I'm going to make it, whatever I choose to make today, it's going to be. In my perspective of what's happening is what I enjoy doing. The other night I was discussing, with someone a concept of I almost can't explain it. So the synapses in the brain and how they connect, and myelin is this connector trust me, you don't want to hear about this. And so after talking to it, I found myself, I was engrossed in researching some of the old Harvard studies and brain scans about this concept. And as I was doing that, I realized like 2.5 hours went by, and I was like, oh wow. And so I told somebody about it. I said, oh my God, that would be hell to me. And I go, yeah, I mean, to me, it's the equivalent of, and ironically, this is always, Alex might not quite get what I'm saying here, but Walt certainly will. Only because of our past history. To me, sitting and watching a 9-inning baseball game is far worse than that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Joel is not much a football fan. I'm more of a baseball fan, and that's what he's referring to. The fact that football is great for him. That'll keep him alive. That'll put me to sleep. Whereas it's just the opposite. Baseball, I'm entranced, and he's ready to take a nap.
Yeah, see, for me, it's both. Like sports in general.
Exactly.
I know who the people play.
That.
I'm just like, nah. And I feel like sports time is a different time. Like, it takes forever.
Well, see, I get that. And that's the beauty. You have 3 different perspectives. I mean, Alex doesn't care about either one. I'm a football fan, and Walt likes to see men adjust their genitals for a long time in the game. So, I mean, it's just an ongoing. There's a lot of adjusting in baseball. A lot.
This is true.
It's basically adjusting and spinning. Like, that's all baseball is.
Yeah, let's do some adjusting and spin a while. I mean, it's pretty much, and then we'll throw a ball, So,
oh, it's so true.
Yeah, it really is. So, so with all kidding aside, the beauty of what makes our country great, what makes our world great, is the multiple perspectives, the multiple things that lead us. In Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks a lot about one of his favorite things to do is a mastermind group where you get a bunch of people together. It could be a bunch. It could be 3 or 20, anywhere, be any amount. And you talk about things. It doesn't even need to be a format, but when you get a group of people with the intent of positive talk and what we're going to do and how we can help each other and you'll be amazed at the energy of what a unique group of people, all having a different perspective, can accomplish. Because other people, when I've been director of companies, I have a certain personality type that I can have a vision of something. And for the longest time, before I got into the law of attraction and really understanding things, I clearly thought I was always right and everyone else was clearly wrong. They just didn't see it my way. That was my way of doing it. And then when I started to learn the value of, while I don't get this, I need that perspective. I know a lot of, I am a very action oriented, let's make it happen. The details are incredibly irrelevant to me. Let's just do stuff. That's my, I'm an implementer. Well, I also realized as I got into the line of work that I'm in now, you also need somebody to do the nasty detailed, the policies and the procedures and the, and the forms and all the stuff that goes on with that. That is, in fact, some people, that's the most important thing in this line of work. So I realized I cannot do those things, or I choose not to do those things. It's not my skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to have a group of people around me. I have a lady that is my right-hand person who does all this detailed stuff for me.
Mm-hmm.
We go to a meeting and she will take all the notes for me. She'll do that and she'll remind me. I'll tell people, yes, I'll handle that. She'll send me an email. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. She's horrified to speak at the meetings. She won't. She's embarrassed. She won't. That's her personality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm clearly not horrified to speak anywhere. So our skill sets match completely. It isn't the one's right or one's wrong. It's just where we're at. And that's what makes our country great. That idea that we can bring all of this to the table, and that's how you create these wonderful things, this amazing world. All that stuff matters, but we cannot, under any circumstance, you just wouldn't want it to be one way. Our country would implode if it were just one ideology. It's never worked. And it's made our strength is our differences. And when we can quit arguing over the differences and accept, yes, I see it differently. I can be adamant about what I believe, but I can accept someone else is entitled to that opinion. While I may not agree with it, they develop that not because they're dumb, stupid, or uneducated. They grew up differently than I did. And that's important.
By the way, the point that you made about the mastermind and the power of the mastermind and how you can experience that on so many different levels applies directly to this podcast. I have 6 different co-hosts who have 6 different points of view, and that makes this show work. If it weren't for that, this show, doing this 5 days a week would be incredibly boring because you'd hear me droning on and falling asleep. It just wouldn't work. I mean, but when you have the 6 other viewpoints that are coming in, that's what makes the whole thing work. Every once in a while, I get a little feedback about, well, this co-host or that co-host, I don't really like this, I don't really like that. And my reaction is good.
Yeah, those are your preferences.
That's a good thing. You're expressing your feeling of preference. You wouldn't have that if it was just me. If I was the only one talking every single day, it would be, well, I either agree with Walt or I disagree with Walt.
Right.
I don't like Walt, so I always disagree, and I'm bored.
And I'm bored. Why are you still here?
Why are you still here?
Well,
right.
And that's why I like the idea of having multiple opinions and multiple perspectives. I get it. I am not everyone's cup of tea. That's okay. I don't want to be.
Same.
I'm very comfortable. It doesn't, I don't want to be that. If you don't like what I'm saying or what I believe in, people say, well, I disagree with you in the law of attraction. And of course, I try not to say this often, but my initial response is, I don't care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't. And then I try to soften it up a little bit, but I don't care. I mean, it's just this, it's this concept that we have to, or don't have to, that I hope we can all embrace is, I don't want to, one of my neighbors is, I have my son Justin, he's 13, and we're having moments of 13-year-oldness. That's always fun. And then one of my neighbors is a 7-year-old boy. Well, this kid he's a hilarious kid. And and I'm not diagnosing with ADD. I don't know him well enough to know that, but he has this, what I call the ADD. They have a trampoline. He's bouncing, he's running, he's flipping, he's falling off the trampoline, he's peeing in the yard. He's just nonstop perpetual motion. And his mom's like, oh my God, he wears me out. And then she said, but at about 9:00 at night, he's out unconscious to the next one. Then he gets up and he runs to the trampoline. It's just all his perspective is just go, 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 go. So if I were to say, let's say the kid's name is John. I was, okay, John, we're going to go sit and listen to this guy talk for about 3 hours about mitochondria.
Oh my God.
Oh no, that isn't
3 hours. You'd be lucky if you got 3 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my point.
You lost me at mitochondria.
Yeah. So if I were to sit him down and make him listen to some lecture on the most boring topic in the world, which isn't to me, but most people it would be, then get upset with him because he didn't sit still and somehow punish him over that, it's just you're setting him up to fail. You're setting us up to, yeah. And you see that. I know in our school system, there's multiple ways to learn, and most 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old kids don't see the world in the way that the adult teachers that have developed the curriculum see it. They're teaching it at a different level. Mm-hmm. So, to sit a kid and I remember just trying to sit down and read something I was supposed to read when I was little, and I used to beat myself up mentally because I was told, you're lazy, you're not applying yourself, you're not performing to your potential. No, I needed to be running around like a crazy man and learning the way my brain will learn. Mm-hmm. But nobody along the way came and did that. Nobody ever encouraged that. And I'm not blaming. It's not a whiny thing. But I'm just saying it led me to understand. It's why I know how to teach a 7-year-old with ADD something, learn how to learn something. It's just, you don't sit there and say, read this paragraph and then discuss mitochondria and its function on some pain receptor on your arm. So what does it even mean? Doesn't make sense. Or nor do I care. I'm 7.
Nor do I care.
But that's it. So when you see that, so people, I don't understand why people don't see things the way I do now. But for a long time, I'm like, God, this is such a clear answer. Like I am with the law of attraction. I get so many people that are just, they're literally, they almost get mad because I'll say something law of attraction based and, they'll be like, oh no, you're blaming me. You're doing this. You're doing this. And I'm going, first of all, I didn't mention you. This is doing you. But you're blaming yourself. Maybe that's a whole different topic. But this idea that somehow, I believe I'm responsible for how I feel. Now, I believe that. Now, other people can argue, well, I'm not responsible for how I feel because I have this going on or not. And I'm not going to argue. Okay, you're missing what I said. I believe I am responsible for how I feel.
Yes.
But I'm not, and then I'm like, one more time. And if you really listen to what I'm saying, I'm not saying you're responsible for how you feel. You got to figure that out. I'm responsible for how, and that works for me. And there's a big difference in that.
It summarizes what goes on with people because so often we want somebody else to behave a certain way. If they will only behave the way we have in mind, everything
would be great.
Everything would be great. Yeah.
Right.
It's never true.
I've told Walt this before. One of the questions that I'll have is when someone's deep in this sort of that rough mindset, I will say, without using another person, you can't mention another person. Mm-hmm. What do you want to happen in your life to make you happy?
That's one interesting way to shut people up.
Facts.
and they'll look at me and go, oh. Mm-hmm. Well, and they have nothing to say. Because most of the time it's like, if my son worked on drugs or if my boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever friend would do this, or if someone would, so without any other folks involved, what would make you happy? And when they have this incredible realization along the way, that no one else is going to make you happy. No thought's going to make you happy except your thoughts that you can control. You can only control what you do. What other people do is totally out of your control. And that acceptance that you're solely responsible for your happiness. It can't be more clear than that. But and again, you get into the idea of a lot of advertising. If I drink Coors Light, I'll all of a sudden I will be on a beach playing volleyball with these really fit, beautiful people, and some random train will come through with snow. I don't quite figure all that out, but that's what happens when we drink Coors Light. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, this would be great, and then we'll just. Now the truth is for me, if I were to go drink any beer in the middle of the hot sun, I would want to go take an ugly nap. It would be like a 3-hour nap and it would be ugly. It would not be fun and I'd be sweaty and then I'd have a headache when I woke up. It would not be what the commercial portrayed at all. But the commercial selling to you, one of those deep, ugly naps.
Like this snoring and drooling, and it's
you can't wake up. You almost have to fight yourself to wake up. You're laying there like, I need to wake up. Yeah. I don't want that middle of the day nap. And, but it's because that's my reality when I go drink a Coors Light on a hot sunny day, but that's not the picture they're painting. The truth is, you go, we're given an image, and it's the subconscious programming. That's what television is. That's what news is. There's a programming. It's literally called programming. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And they're programming, they're putting out information. You see that, and that information, and we take it in, and then we get, I'll hear people, and again, this isn't judging people for their view on things, but I'll hear literal arguments over some reality show, and I'm going, what do you, did you see what he said or she said? And I'm going, I don't even know what you're talking about. And, and so this true story the other day, somebody said, oh, did you see what happened on Survivor? It's been a while back. And I'm like, is that isn't that gay? No, I said, didn't that gay dude who's a nudist win that? And they go, like 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I said, oh, okay. So that's the last show I watched.
Right.
And so and so, but again, my perspective, but equally, I'm absolutely fine with whoever wants to. I'm great with that. It's just not my reality. I'm not speaking a language. They're not speaking a language I can relate to on that. But finding the commonalities. I had a very difficult, this is one most unusual. I get a lot of unusual requests in my practice, but one that was pretty unusual this week. I had a call from a lady. She was very secretive. Wouldn't give me her real first name. And she said, I need to meet with you for conflict resolution. And I'm like, okay, can you give me some detail? I was trying to pick her brain about, no, I can't talk about it over the phone. I will bring, I don't even know what we were dealing with. It was just two people with conflict resolution. So, okay, I'll figure it out together. And so it was a very complicated story. It's a supervisor. It's there's an intimate relationship, and there's betrayal, and it's a very complicated thing. And there's this huge conflict between the two people. And it was simply a matter of getting into it once we got past the anger part, which usually it takes a little while. So we got through that. And then I got them to report the other person's feelings as you saw them from the other side. Try to look at it from this side of the table. When I do that, I have people, have a round table, and again, a lot of the stuff I do is to sort of demonstrate things. I have them switch chairs. I said, now mentally, you're switching who you are. Tell the story from this person's perspective, and do it. I'm going to hold you to accountability and honest. Don't do it and it's an amazing technique because it forces someone to see it from their perspective, the other person's perspective. And so we did that. We went back and forth in less than an hour and a half. I mean, we had a really good, still didn't agree, but the conflict portion of it was gone. Now we were just to resolution. Now we're going to resolve the issue in the sense of, we see it differently. We're not going to agree on it. But we have to come up with something. And so you can see the key to a lot of this stuff. If we could ever get someone to deliver the message of trying to see the other person's perspective, at least not to agree with it. Me seeing it doesn't mean I agree with it. I know a lot of people that do a lot of things that I don't agree with at all. Okay. However, with that being said, I accept that's what they're doing. That's what they feel their passion and where they're going. And I'm okay with that. But I also will allow them the opportunity to succeed, and I'll allow them the opportunity to fail. Either way, it will be their choice and their decision. And that's really important that I can see that. And that's the life hack of all time is being able to step back and view the world through the lens of the person you disagree with. And then when you can figure out how to do that, resolution is always around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back a moment to a word you used, because it's something I actually did this research recently, and I brought up again while you were talking to remind myself exactly what it was about. But the word was program. You talked about programming and how what they put on the news, on television, on radio, they call it programming, and they call it that for a reason. Interesting thing is, do you know what the origins of the word program are? You probably don't, so I'll just cut to the quick. It actually comes from the ancient Greek, and it means to write publicly, to issue an edict. That's what programming really is. Mm-hmm. So think about what this all adds up to. What it really means is that if I write something publicly, and by the way, Joel, you just did. You said it wouldn't be great if, and well, you just did, because you put it out on a podcast. So in a sense, you wrote it publicly. Mm-hmm. What we're saying about programming is if I write something publicly, if I put something out publicly, I am programming your mind. And the thing that I want to point out here is it only works if you read it. You don't decide to read it, it ain't going to work. Now, so often we say, oh, God, I was watching the show. I was listening to this newscast. I bought into what was written publicly. Doesn't have to be true. I bought into it. It was my choice. No, it wasn't. It was forced on me. Well, yeah, actually, it was your choice. You didn't have to read it. You didn't have to watch it. You didn't have to listen. You know? That's the point I want to make. We get to choose what we're going to program ourselves with. Mm-hmm. We can write our stuff.
Yeah. What goes into our brain is we're in charge of it. Yeah. And despite what we're seeing, what we believe, when you choose to watch something, that is going, or you choose to listen to our podcast, it is programming. It is part of the deal. You can either totally dismiss what we're saying, or you can listen to it, but it gets you thinking. People that keep coming back saying, wow, this sort of relates to me. Mm-hmm. So I do program my brain. Yeah. And I program it with stuff that, I do meditations. I listen to a ton of, audiobooks. I do a lot of reading, a lot of research. I do a lot of stuff, and I choose the content that goes in my brain. And so I tend not to be distracted with the silliness, or again, when I say silliness, that's a perspective. So if it means anything, I have this, another one of my dear friends, has this great guy, but again, very on the conservative side. And every year he has this habit of watching I don't even know the award show, but the Emmys and all these award shows. Mm-hmm. And then he'll rant about the liberal tilt of what the people were saying.
Oh boy.
And I said, so every year you watch Hollywood actors or music people or whatever the stuff is, who do have a liberal tendency, and it is where they go. So, but you watch that knowing it, so you tuned in to be pissed off. Your goal was to be pissed off by this, and or you wouldn't have tuned in, because you know that they're going to say that. It isn't. So why tune in? Or if you do tune in, just accept. Okay, they do what they always do. They piss me off, but don't act so shocked like. Right. I cannot believe that they talk so bad about this, and it's such a negative view. I'm like, well, of course that's their view.
This reminds me of a line from Family Guy, ironically. And there was an argument going on, and Peter had stopped the whole thing, and he said, I disagree, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
Yeah. It's such a, and those are the things that we're trying to do. It is law of attraction is what it begins with learning to allow the programming to take place in your brain. Mm-hmm. The energy we put in is largely based on the energy we bring in. The energy we put out is eventually you're trying to match those energies. So I don't need to program myself with a bunch of negative, argumentative type stuff. It's irrelevant. If somebody wants to drive a tank around Washington, D.C. tonight and have pissing contests and argue about who has the bigger military or whatever thing we want to argue about is bigger, if we want to do that, okay, if that makes you happy, if that makes you feel more American, let's go do it. Let's do it. And if it doesn't, don't give it the energy.
Yep.
But it only can have power if you program it in to have power.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of programming, I want to make sure that I put my programming out there. So if you're not yet a subscriber to the podcast, this is what you get. We talk about all kinds of stuff like this every single day, 5 days a week. So become a subscriber so you can get all the good content coming. And you do it very simply by going to the website, loatoday.net. And at the top, it will walk you through the steps for becoming a subscriber. And just like that, you'll get all of our programs coming right to your device. And, well, of course, once you're a subscriber, make sure that you share the fact that you're a subscriber. And if you actually decide you want to watch us while we're doing these programs, we actually live stream them while we're recording them on YouTube. And Alex is going to tell you how you get a subscription there and how you get notified whenever we're doing it.
So you go to YouTube and you search LOA Today podcast videos. And once you've done that, you hit the subscribe button. And next to the subscribe button, there is a little tiny bell. And you hit that bell and you'll be notified every time we are live.
And there it is. And before we part company, I also want to give Joel the opportunity that I try to give all of my co-hosts who are coaches and therapists and so forth, the opportunity to tell people how to reach Joel Elston. So, Joel, how do they reach Joel Elston?
Probably the simplest way is joelelston@gmail.com. My website's joelelston.com. It's always great to hear from our listeners, so reach out.
No, we love it. Yeah, it's fun when we get an email. It's fun when we get a phone call, whatever, text message, Facebook message, doesn't matter. It's always great.
Yep.
Most often because we get such really positive, happy messages, which tells us good listeners who really like what we're doing. So thank you, guys. Thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you for pointing out we don't have to focus on the stuff we don't want. We really appreciate that. Thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.